Hello, my name is Travis Lenz. My company is Green Conversion, and this is my deluxe vegetable oil conversion kit used to basically run waste vegetable oil through your diesel vehicle. So I'm going to quickly run through this setup. Okay, starting at the very bottom here is a plate heat exchanger. You would route your coolant in and out through the 16-plate stainless steel heat exchanger, and then your waste vegetable oil is basically routed through the other side. This is all the ports are labeled. You'd hook up your 5/16 fuel line from your waste vegetable oil tank into this port here. And then what that does is that runs through the heat exchanger, warms up to close to the same temperature as the coolant, which is around 180 Fahrenheit. It goes through this double strainer setup, and this would be mounted in a horizontal position in your vehicle. And then what this is it has a strainer. It's got a real fine stainless steel mesh in there, and then it's got a cartridge filter. And they're both clear bowls, a drain cock in the bottom, so you can drain any fluid that may accumulate in there if you have bad oil. And like I say, this stainless steel mesh, it's really super fine, and it'll prolong the life of your cartridge filters like tenfold. It's definitely an investment worthwhile. You could just have a single unit, but I definitely recommend this. And you can see there's a very fine stainless steel mesh. And then from here, the fuel would go up through the stainless steel mesh, through the cartridge filter, and into a three-way solenoid valve. Now, so this is your waste vegetable oil supply coming up through here. This would be your diesel supply, regular diesel going through here. And what this does is it switches on and off when you apply power to the solenoid. So the default state is it would be coming through the diesel. Diesel will be going straight through the valve and into this line, which goes to your injector pump, to the engine. And when you activate the solenoid, it basically switches, so then it'll be routing fuel through your waste vegetable oil tank, through the heat exchanger, through the filters, and through here and into this line. And then from here, this line basically goes down through, and it will go through this T connection. And this T connection is where you would route your fuel return. A little bit more about that is all covered in my instructions, and all of this is detailed, laid out in this schematic diagram. For example, showing the diesel return, which typically would go to the tank, but when you have waste vegetable oil, you need to route it back through and loop it. It's called looping the fuel return, so that way you don't get diesel returning to your waste vegetable oil tank when you're on waste vegetable mode, or waste vegetable oil returning to the diesel tank when you're on diesel mode. So that's what that's for. And then the fuel routes through my 200 watt 12 volt electric heater. Now this is an aluminum tube wrapped with resistance coils, 200 watts, and it's so big and wrapped up here with this steel tape. It's insulated, and basically thoroughly insulated and wrapped with this tape to keep the heat inside, to keep it energy efficient. And on the exit of this heater, there's a temperature switch. And basically it's just a little bimetallic temperature switch that detects the optimum temperature and switches automatically over to the waste vegetable oil supply when it's up to temp. I'll go over that in a little bit more detail now. I'm just right now, this looks a little complicated with all these wires, but this basically has enough wire so that you can route it through and wire it all up inside your vehicle. And right now I'm just testing it by hooking it up to my wife's car. And what I do, I got the 12 volts here and then the ground here. And each of these wires is thoroughly labeled. And in this case, one of these would be routed through your ignition, and that's your low amperage for the switching control. And then you got the higher amperage, which would be just directly from your fuse box or from your battery. So what I do also include in these is a little a little testing switch. And what this switch does is when I activate it, you see this light turns on. It's hard to see, and you can hear this click. And there's actually a little red light, I don't know if you can see it or not there, on this solenoid. And then what that click sound is doing is it's switching from the default to diesel. So when I push the switch, now it's actually switching to vegetable oil. So this is a bypass switch that allows me to switch it even though temperature is not reached, and that's mainly used for like testing and for purging air out of the system. It's always important to purge the air out of the system. So you see that. So that's my little testing switch. But under normal activation, what you would do is these switches and these indicator lights would all be mounted in your dash. You just drill a small hole, pop it through, put this retainer nut on, and it's clean and nicely mounted. So when you normally go in your vehicle, you would switch this switch on, and then what that does is when you switch that on, it's now providing power to this 12 volt heater. So then basically you'd be driving normally, but now it's still on diesel, because unless this light is on, you're running on diesel. So now what it's doing is while it's heating up, this is starting to get a little bit warm. When this hits the optimum temperature, which is around 120 F, it'll click this bimetallic valve, and the light will come on, and it will switch to waste vegetable oil. So right now we're just going to go ahead and wait for that to warm up. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to go over my instructions that are provided with this kit. Basically it goes through everything that's provided in this kit, everything that's necessary for installation, electrical, mechanical. It's all laid out here, and this detailed schematic drawing, which also basically clearly shows how to hook everything up, basically electrically. If you're not good with electric, you can hire a mechanic or get someone you know, but it's fairly straightforward. All the basically connections are thoroughly labeled, and really all you need to do is I've got all the grounds coming in. You need to put the black to ground and the red to power, and then the one of the powers you do want to make sure it's through your ignition switch. Okay, so we're still waiting. It's not up to temperature yet, but it should be up pretty soon. Like if you're driving, there's no fuel flowing through here, so right now I'm relying solely on conduction to get up to temperature, and it's on a cold cement floor too, so it doesn't really help. But you see, I feel that's nice and warm, and it's insulated, so it's not going to burn you or anything, and that works well. And I can feel the tube here is actually getting quite hot, so I should be getting up to temperature here pretty soon. Be quiet and we can hear it click. Like I say, these, I've got two relays. What these relays do is this one relay, oh, there, it just activated, see? That switch is on. I don't know if you can see it there, but the light is on the solenoid. So now that it's hot and this temperature switch is activated at the right temperature, you'd be running on vegetable oil and you know, being green. And that's basically how this kit works. Once you're done, once you get close to your destination, you would then turn the switch off. The light goes off, and then you would consume the vegetable oil in your system and replace it with diesel. So that way you can always start your car when it's cold on diesel. Now if I were to turn it back on, because it's still at the right temperature, it goes automatically back to veggie oil. So you're automatically on veggie. Like I was just about to say, I do have two relays. These are 30 amp relays. One relay allows you to use low amperage current to actuate going through all these switches and going through your ignition switch. And the benefit of that is that you don't have all the extra current going through low current devices. And then it actuates the higher current on these connectors, which then basically goes to your heater. And then you've got a secondary relay that also, when the heater is up to temperature and the temperature switch activates, then it activates your solenoid. Sounds confusing, but definitely if you spend some time looking at the schematic, everything is laid out in great detail here. I'll provide this to you electronically and through email. It gives you information too about what you could use for alternative fuel tanks. That's largely what I just recommend, is just going with a simple marine style tank. But like I say, that's the basics of it. When you do get a kit from me, all the connections, all the wires will be clearly labeled. So, you know, as long as you know a little bit about wiring, it shouldn't be too complicated to hook up. But yeah, it does look crazy with all the wire, but I did provide enough wire to make sure you can get these routed through under your dash. And like I said, I've got quite a few grounds, and the reason why I got so many grounds, I got them all tied into one right now for testing. But some of these grounds would be located on your dash, some of these grounds would be in the hood. So you can combine them, and then instead of having wires going back and forth, you can ground, for example, you want to ground your illuminator light, you ground it under your hood. So you just use one of these ground wires close to where you need to and ground it. Or you can leave this connector in and just have one main ground, however works for you. Like I say, it's pretty straightforward, and I can definitely walk you through it. Like I said, basically this is my deluxe kit. If you were to go with a basic kit, it doesn't include the heat exchanger and the filters. So you would need to do that yourself. And you can also, instead of the heat exchanger, you can also get a separate electric heater in there as well. So that's my conversion kit, and I hope I explained it thoroughly. Bye-bye.